Hi, everybody. It's Mama Kay once again, coming from her home studios in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. And I'm thrilled that I've actually gotten this person in their place right now, ready to talk to me. I have been waiting for this since my interview series started. They're one of my favorite people. They're so much fun and they're so talented. And without further ado, special guest, who are you?
Shashi Ramu. Hi. That's my name.
Shashi, where do you live?
I live in Toronto, Ontario.
And what do you do there?
I work for a company called Harknet Music. We're in the music retail industry. And I am the director of sales and marketing for the company, as well as being the performance music consultant and specialist.
How long have you been there?
3.5 years. And prior to that, I was doing the same job with a company called Steve's Music for 7 years. Prior to that, I was doing pretty much the same job with a company that we all know and love called All McQuaid Musical Instruments for 10 years. And then I was at St. John's Music for a year before that. So we are right at the 22-year mark for me.
I had no idea it was that long.
It's been 22 years.
And how long have you been in Toronto for?
Permanently 18. I moved here for the first attempt right after I finished at University of Manitoba, which was 1998. And I drank and ate out too much and failed miserably. And I came home in 98, and that's when I started at St. John's Music. So it was pretty much straight from the degree into the industry.
That's great. And I mean, we're also happy that you're still so involved with it too, right? It's easier for us to connect with you and get chances to visit with you because, well, you know, when you're from Manitoba and you're a band person, you don't let anybody go.
Yeah, things are really different here in Ontario. And it's nice. It's nice to get home as much as I'm able to and see all of my friends and family. And the last 2 jobs have allowed me to actually be coming home in a professional sense as well. So it's been good that way.
Well, we're so thrilled when we get to see you. It's absolutely wonderful. I hope to get to see you again.
I am thrilled also.
So, Shashi, I don't think I know this whole story from you. I cannot wait to hear your Shashi journey story. So let's go way back in time to baby Shashi. And all the way up until you got into university. Take us through it.
Sure. So, well, what can I say? I started piano when I was 4 years old in the south end of Winnipeg with a very popular teacher at the time by the name of Ann Dirksen, who also was one of the main piano teachers at the CMU. For years and years. So that was the beginning. And I got to grade 7 at Acadia Junior High School. And my band director's name was Rod Weedman. And he placed me on the trombone. And I loved it a lot. I really enjoyed it. But I had braces. I had serious dental work with the elastics and the headgear and the whole thing. And the pressure from the brass mouthpiece was digging into my face. So I was bleeding at the end of every class and every rehearsal, but I still kept trying to do it. And so at the end of that year, we switched me off of brass instruments and switched to the tenor saxophone. And I started playing tenor. And then I think a turning point for a lot of people that have gone through the Acadia Fort Richmond system is when you make it into that elite grade 9 jazz band at Acadia, because a very high percentage of those people who continue on into music after they graduate from Fort Richmond actually have become music educators and professionals. Many of our friends, I'm not going to name any of them right now, but I did have the honor and pleasure of going to school with several people in the Winnipeg music community and music education community. So that was a big turning point, was making the tenor, one of the tenor sax spots into that jazz band. And that sort of propelled my interest and my enthusiasm and my dedication, and like just the whole band geek light bulb went off that year in grade 9. It was also the year that my parents divorced and my mother and I left. So it really was a sanctuary. Like, it was a safe place, as well as being the thing that I love the most. So tenor saxophone. So then we get to grade 10 at Fort Richmond. At the end of grade 9, I started. We're back in the age of tape cassettes at this point. We're not even at CDs yet. So I was stealing band music demo tape cassettes from Acadia, from Rod Weedman. And I was learning the snare drum parts by ear, using 2 barbecue skewers as my drumstick on an ironing board. And I don't know if you've ever tried that, but it sounds like a snare drum, and it actually reverberates really well. So I was learning all the band pieces on snare drum. And so when I got to Fort Richmond, Orv Anderson has a list that Rod Weedman has supplied him with of instrumentation. And I said, no, I don't play tenor sax. I play percussion.
Oh, Shashi.
So I played percussion, grade 10, 11, 12, in the wind ensemble and concert band at Fort Richmond. I kept
no trombone, no tenor sax.
I kept tenor sax going and played tenor sax in senior jazz band all 3 years. And the braces came off in grade 10, and I thought, And once you get to high school, there's a little more freedom of experimentation, and there's school instruments sitting all over the place. So I picked up a euphonium. And so we went into grade 11 playing euphonium in the big Fort Richmond Symphonic Band, playing first tenor sax in the jazz band, or second tenor, whatever it was, and percussion. I was in provincial honor band, senior high honor band, all 3 years on percussion. So that was kind of my main thing. Many people don't realize that was also my first year of university, and my university entrance was percussion as a percussionist.
No way. I had no clue.
Yeah, and I had a terrible time with my first year. God, I hope certain people aren't watching this right now. I did not have a good experience in certain aspects of that instrument choice, a major practical study at U of M. So, and trombone was starting to accelerate at that point. And so I switched over for good during my second year, and that's when you and I first met, because you sold me my trombone at St. John's Music. So that was 26 years ago.
Holy crow.
When you sold me that Bach trombone.
Yeah, that's when I had left the U of M and I was on my 3 years of full time at the store.
Yeah, and I remember I brought you a check, like, for $2,400. And by the way, the same instrument now is like almost $6,000. So these were the times that we were in, and it was great. And so, and then things got really good. From there, I had some really great opportunities, particularly when I would go down to Los Angeles, and I had a couple of occasional teachers with big names in the industry down there that I had opportunities to study with. And I studied with John Miller from the WSO. And
so you were able to switch your majors? I
was able to switch my major during the second year. So in my second year itself, I actually didn't take major practical study. So I resumed, so I did the 5-year plan of performance.
So Shashi, I'm going to backtrack a little bit. What drove you to go into music?
I was teetering between, and this is very interesting now, between marketing. I was going to do a BCom or music. And so part of it, you know what? I'm not even going to mince words. It was Richard Gillis.
Really?
Yeah. Richard Gillis really reached out, and he really made an effort to sell me on the program and to connect while I was still at Fort Richmond. So I met I met Richard in grade 11 at Fort Richmond. The other thing was I played in the Winnipeg Wind Ensemble.
When you were in high school?
In grade 11, from grade 11 to whenever I left Winnipeg. So I had the teacher connections already. You know, I've known, you know, some people, some of the grizzly old veterans that we're all friends with and that we look up to, and I've known them since I was in grade 11, which is, you know, however many thousand years that's been. So I had that influence as well. And I had, every Monday night, I would hear them talking about their students and their teaching experiences and all of this upper level musical stuff. And I just wanted that.
That's huge, right? When you're surrounded by people that are that much better than you are, that love what they do.
Yeah, and that really, like Richard was one person, Rob Payne was another one. Rob was played percussion in the Winnipeg Wind Ensemble as well. So I got to share every Monday night with him, and just the way that the things that I learned from him when at a very young age, where I think about them a lot still today, and I think that was part of my influence as well.
Awesome. Thanks for backtracking like that. So you're at university, you are now second year,
so we're playing trombone and we're having fun in the jazz orchestra and in the wind ensemble, and I'm traveling a lot, so I'm going down to Los Angeles a lot and taking occasional lessons, and then that was it. You know, U of M was what it was. It was great. It changed quite a bit after I graduated and after, you know, in the next generation of people. But by that point, I was starting out in the industry, and things got to go full circle because then they became my client. And you know, some of the schools that I was involved with and many of those teacher colleagues that I played in Winnipeg Wind Ensemble with when I was younger, all the way through university, suddenly became my customers. So it was kind of neat. It was a neat transition.
Probably very natural transition.
Very natural, right? Yeah.
Oh, well, that's awesome. So now, Shashi, remembering, of course, that this is a family show, what would you say one of the weirdest gigs that you've ever been involved in has been?
It's not very exciting. It was actually here when I first moved.
Here being Toronto.
Yeah, I was playing trombone in a community orchestra, and we got to a performance, and the entire percussion section didn't show up for the gig.
No.
Yeah. So I was going between the two instruments during pieces. So
you were the one-man band.
So I was playing section parts with a snare drum in my lap. So that's probably the weirdest. I did play drum set for a number of University of Manitoba Jazz Orchestra gigs at the Macaroni Bar.
Oh my.
I actually played kit for a couple of gigs. It was very out of time. Very, like the fills didn't quite make it to beat one, and there were expressions and yells coming from over in the horn section, and yeah. So those two things, and they're funny because they don't have to do a trombone at all. Trombone gigs, I don't think I've really had anything that's been really weird. I've done some recording stuff. I did recording when I first moved here for Alliance Atlantis, who existed at the time before they were bought by the Aspers Global, and the recording gigs were challenging just because you never actually got to play music. It was always a take. It had very little to do with, you know, going from point A to point B in the music. It was a take and then repeating the same thing 25 times. So I consider those to be a little weird.
Yeah, like you said, not very musical, not something that would drive you forward to want to do any more of it.
But then there's those people who do that.
Yeah, the session musicians, sort of, right?
I know people, I'm friends with some of them, and especially in the United States and in in the film industries and screen industries, that's all they do, and they're perfectly content with it. It does render a very big paycheck, especially if you're in a royalty-driven situation. It can be very lucrative, but it's just not enough music for me personally.
No, absolutely. Like you said, not a ton of personal expression that you can put into it, right?
You don't get the opportunity. You don't get the time, because as soon as you start, if you've got a 10 measure lyrical excerpt or something that you're playing along with, and you're playing an inner part to it, and you start doing anything, you're going to get cut off and asked to start again. So I didn't really like that, especially after having gone through the training and all the musical experience that I went through while I was at home in Winnipeg.
Absolutely. So Shashi, I don't think we touched on this at all. Before you got to university, were you studying privately with anybody?
I was outside of piano. In high school, was I studying privately? No.
So you got in on
mentors.
percussion without having studied privately.
But I had grade 10 piano.
Right.
I did. I didn't finish my grade 10. I'm sorry. I have my grade 9 RCM certificate, which I completed at the end of grade 10 in Fort Richmond. So the grade systems were pretty much parallel. So the reading wasn't a big deal. So the rhythms weren't a big deal. Like I said, I taught myself how to read snare drum rhythms on the ironing board and learned a good portion of it from ear, but I just never found it all that challenging. All my friends who are like Matt Abraham's going to be throwing stuff at the screen right now, but I'm going to get hit in the head with a tomato as soon as I come home to visit. But I never ever understood rudiments. I never understood how to strike a drum properly. I was always faking it and making it up. I never understood really like all of the fundamentals of the physicality and the real technique of drumming and even mallet playing. I was doing all of it wrong and having extreme amounts of success with it.
You just brought Shashi to it.
I wasn't just getting by. Like I was getting, I had scholarship offers to universities, and I was really doing everything wrong. So,
well, you were doing it right enough.
Times have changed. It's not like that anymore.
So I gotta ask you, I know you're doing a bit of private teaching. Do you have an ironing board in your studio?
I like playing percussion still. I like playing. The only times that I don't have an ironing board. No. I do. When I host reading clinics, I like to jump back there and get on timpani parts and snare parts and whatever. But and if I filled in my community band that I play in, I've switched sections to fill in during when there's been shortages and things like that. But it's not where my heart's at. It never really was where my heart was at. It wound up being what the path was there temporarily, only because I think of the success and because I was kind of a slacker. I still am a slacker.
Well, you've done amazing things with what you're calling slacking. So,
well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Fantastic. So, Shashi, there are some students that may be watching this. What sort of advice do you have to kids who might be thinking of going into music as a career?
Don't stop practicing. You know what? I'm glad you asked me this question. A good friend of ours and colleague, Mr. Greg Crow, and I had a conversation about this yesterday. It wasn't this exact topic, but especially now during these times, and for longevity and to look towards the future, just never stop practicing. It's really hard to stay motivated and inspired sometimes, especially when there are environmental variables like there are right now. And the thing we were talking about yesterday was just put the instrument on your face.
Yeah.
Like, even if it's for a minute and a half, even if it's for 90 seconds, at least it was on your face. You can say that it was on your face that day. You can't say that you really practiced or that you worked on anything, but you can say that your muscles in your face remembered where they're supposed to go. And I have a studio. I have students here who are having very big problems with this right now. Because we're in a dense area, as far as the virus and all of these things go, and because of e-learning, being out of school and away from their colleagues and their peers and their friends, a couple of my students are really struggling with staying motivated. And the best advice I can give, and I'm doing it too, we're all doing it, right? The best advice I can give anybody is to just put that instrument on your face, or if you're playing percussion in your hands or you're a pianist or whatever, every day. Even if you're forcing yourself to do it, if you're in that conundrum where you really don't want to do it, still force 90 seconds out, or 60 or 90 seconds out, just to know. And it will actually give you peace of mind. It's sort of like, it's like when you wake up in the morning and you make your bed at the beginning of each day, right? Everybody who makes their bed has a better day because they have a little bit more peace of mind. And of course, doing the dishes, doing the errands, cleaning your house, all of those things. And I sort of look at that practice of just making sure that you do something on your instrument every day. It's something that's helped me a lot over the years. So.
No, that's great advice. Absolutely. That reminds me, I need to play tonight. Yeah, it's tough though, right? I know for me, I'm a real goal person, right? If I have a goal, something I'm striving for, I'm much more likely to be practicing towards it. But if I don't have one, it's almost like I need to really sort of create my own new little goals, right? And as a band teacher, I think a lot of my kids are struggling. We can't have our year-end concert, right? And that's the big push to the end of the year, right? So how do we motivate in a new way?
Another colleague of ours put this idea in my head a couple of weeks ago during a Zoom where I'm not going to say who she was, but she was talking a lot about just conversations that we have with our students right now about the why versus the how, right? And I know you guys at MBA have been talking about it too. I think we all have to shift our mindset a little bit, and our perception and our approach to really think about how to reinforce the why and get students to tell us why.
Yeah.
And engage them in that way, right? I myself am very fortunate because I'm not going to say I'm fortunate because I'm not teaching classroom full time, but I have a studio. It's somewhat elite. Like I teach only from grade 10 to grade 12 privately right now. That's going to change, but I've been very fortunate to have students who have either a post-secondary goal or who are very driven within their stronger high school programs,
right?
Leaders. So, like I said, that's going to change. But even with those kids right now, some of them are struggling with the why.
Right.
So I'm constantly trying to come up with ways of reinforcing that and asking new questions that we took for granted, the answers of which we took for granted before.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I love that. So final question for you, Shashi. It doesn't even have to be music related. As you say, and we've been talking about, these are weird times indeed. What sort of bigger bits of worldly wisdom do you have to impart on us to help us continue to go through?
You mean the times that we're in right now?
Yep.
For example?
Yeah. What are some things maybe that you're doing that you're finding really beneficial to get through?
Well, I'll tell you, can I just sort of continue upon something that you were talking about? Was
Sure, please do.
setting? Um, I'll tell you about what I'm doing this summer. I'm in the process right now of designing an actual curriculum for private instruction. It's going to be laid out as an 8-week long course for July and August. Um, and it's just a different approach to private teaching, with the emphasis being put on Zoom, or on the digital online version of teaching. Once I launch this, which the goal date for announcing everything and putting out advertising for it is June the 1st. It'll be basically for July and August. It's basically 8 lessons with a curriculum, with a direction, and with tiered levels. And it's going to be advertised and open to students in Manitoba and in Ontario. And the reason for that is because I live in both places, and I'm going to be visiting Manitoba for probably 3 to 4 weeks over the summer. So what that does, hopefully, if we keep going in the direction that we're going in terms of restrictions being lifted and progress being made with everything COVID, it will give me and the prospective students the opportunity to actually have a socially distanced, responsible live meeting or two during that 8-week term, as well as all of the online stuff. So it was actually a couple of my students, 2 of my grade 11 students, who helped me come up with the idea and the concept. One of them is going to hopefully be teaching 1 or 2 of the little kids of the grade 6s or grade 7s in the beginner tier. And the idea behind it is to cover fundamentals and have a very good exposure and representation of genres, instrument specific for trombone. So there's jazz in every single tier. There's intro to melodies and intro to improv in the upper 2 tiers, and then it gets into some complicated stuff with transcriptions in the 3rd one. And then there's repertoire. There's literature for every tier. There's methodology. There's idiosyncratic things to trombone that a lot of teachers don't ever talk about, and kids just wind up finding out for themselves. Just sort of tricks, and it's sort of like my treasure chest of things that I have learned and that I have put into practice and I've been teaching from for the last 25 years of teaching this instrument. So I'm trying to put it all together into a program. And I thought now would be a good time because we're stuck with Zoom, and it would be a good time to try and develop an actual template for it to move forward with and to pass along to some of my students who need some teaching experience on their resumes before they start. One in particular is going to be auditioning for some high-level universities in the United States in a year, so he needs some teaching under his belt. So this is a good way to kind of start with that. So
what an amazing thing to drive you forward, right? Like how exciting, right? You have that passion for it. You have
I am on a break from my company right now because of COVID. So it is a thing that allows me to stay in our focused area, and it allows me to connect hopefully with more and different students. It's not that big of a commitment for students and parents.
8 weeks is not too long at all.
It's not long, and it's rebated, right? So it's not going to be like my regular lesson rate times 8. There's a fairly big rebate in there. I'm in the process of finalizing copyright permission on all the materials from publishers. So I have most of it already. I have my own materials that I've created and developed over the years as well. So you don't have to buy any books either. So there's some good selling points to it. I'm hoping to try and also attract some of the kids who may be missing out on day camps and band camps.
Right.
Because a lot of them aren't going to make it this
No, but
year,
what,
especially where
again, like to have a fresh perspective from you too, right? Even if they have been studying with somebody else a little bit, right? To have, like you said, like somebody different for 8 weeks, here's a chunk, here's our workshop, right? And just, again, fresh eyes, fresh ideas, or just said a different way.
Yes, and it is an assessment program. There is an assessment at the end. There is certification. There are trophies at the end, and there are different levels of achievement. And so there is a tangible goal, as well as there's going to be an electronic performance as well. So I'm just in the process of finalizing all of those things and trying different things out, especially with these platforms online, because all of them have different little problems, right?
Right. But how
Teaching,
exciting.
it is exciting. I hope that it works. I hope that it takes off. So we'll see how it goes. So that didn't answer your question at all, but
No, but I mean, like, I almost wish we were, we are a couple weeks, a week and a half from now, because then I could put your link, so you'll have to send me the
well, I
link
appreciate
after.
that, and I will hit you up on a rain check basis for that. And I'm going to be advertising it through you guys and through Facebook and through everybody. So, but to answer the question, just try to think if you're a student right now, just try to think of that goal. You know, the teachers that I've talked to, and I know you've talked to, everybody keeps like when a teacher hears from a student about something that they want to do or that they want to pursue, or an idea that they've had, or some thought process or something like that, it brings immediate joy to that music teacher, where that music teacher may not have had joy that day because of this situation that we're in right now. So that's what I would say to the students, is try to find that goal for sure, which is, I'm really just stealing your advice.
All good, it's all good.
With different wording and different inflection, but no, that's what it is. And for teachers, like, I don't even know where to start. I can't even. You guys are the heroes. The people who are keeping their chins up and their heads up and developing material and curriculum and lesson plans and ideas, and keeping the inboxes in the Google Classroom feeds full for their students, while not necessarily being required or mandated to do so by their government. That's amazing me right now. The materials that I've seen that have come from, this is a material right now that you've developed, and it's amazing. Some of our friends have come up with some amazing things. Many of my colleagues here have brought, just people who I never thought would turn into leaders and shift into leadership roles, really have, through this process that we're going through. So that in itself has been very inspiring. And for the teachers that are feeling a little bit defeated, but who still have this passion, and are band geeks just like us, just take a look at what all of our other colleagues are doing, because it really is pretty cool. There's some amazing stuff out there, like mind-blowing stuff.
And what's really great too about all those people who have done all those different projects, everybody's so willing to share.
Yeah, it's very inclusive, and it's very welcoming, and it is really all about outreach and idea sharing and best practices. Like that alone, like people just sharing their best practices. There's so many new things I have learned that I would have never thought of doing in a classroom. So it's been neat. So yeah.
Well, that's perfect, Shashi. Shashi, I wish you were here in person. I wish you were at least in Winnipeg, so I could shout at you from the road to your house.
Socially distanced air hug. I know.
No kidding.
I'm planning to come home soon. We just have to find, we just have to wait a little for a couple of things to happen here.
Yeah.
And then for some highways to open up.
Yep.
And some rest areas to open up, because I am not driving over the Canadian Shield ever again. I will absolutely hit a deer in the middle of the night.
That's the kind of adventure you don't want to have.
Does not bear the structural integrity to survive that amount of incident. So once the American interstates are open, and once especially the state of Michigan is a little bit cleaner than it is right now, because it's very riddled in coronavirus right now, then I'll be able to make the drive home, and I'm planning to be there for about a month when I get home. So I'm looking forward to seeing everybody in person.
Yay. Shashi, thank you so much for taking time today. I miss you so much.
Me.
And I hope I even get to see you virtually more often, because I know I got to see you, was it last week? I think it was last week. Feels like last week. Was it last week?
It's all sort of, all the days are, you know, a little
well, anyways, I feel like, you know, we got to do this a lot more often.
Yeah, for sure.
Shashi, have an amazing rest.
Thank you for having me.
We'll see you later, hopefully soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.